Okay, well, this is office hours for MasterClass. If this is your first time, you're welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. This is a very informal, fluid conversation where we just really talk about what's happening in public health in the larger scheme of things, the job market, but also what's going on in your world with how job searching is going. Everyone in here has the MasterClass, access to the MasterClass, so you're among people who are actively job searching, so you can rely on that. And some people just like to come back and hear how others are doing, even if they've already gotten a job, or they like to share that they've been hired or there's traction. But this time is really for you. I don't have an agenda besides just leaving it open to questions, and then maybe doing some job searching. Okay, so who has a question?
Um, I was born in Brazil. I
Patricia.
did my master degree. I did my graduation, my master degree, and my doctorate in Brazil. I've been living here for 7 years
Okay.
because my husband he relocated for a job. You
Oh,
during this period of 7 years, I tried to apply for different institutions for a job position for public health.
okay.
I'm my master degree is in regional and urban planning, and my doctorate is in public health. One part I did in Brazil, and another part I did in France. And during this time, I find a lot of ways to submit my resume or my cover letter for a different institutions. I send my resume and cover letter for CDC, for uh, uh, United Nations, for different universities,
Okay.
but I am not obtain a good successful result.
Okay.
Sometimes the institutions answers my questions. I had one interview for Harvard,
Good for
but
you.
the last questions of my interview, it's not good, and I think of that I'm not pass because my
Okay.
English in that time it's not sufficient. Now I improve a lot of my English, and one day I met for one person's with CDC, and this guy recommended me, Patricia, you have a green card and you need to do apply for U.S. citizens. Now I have my U.S. citizens, and I tried to submit different positions for a job in America.
Right.
But during 7 years, I don't have a successful to return. I don't know how
Okay.
can I apply. Can I apply my resume or
Right. Right. Right.
my uh, uh, cover letter? It's not sufficient or good.
I understand. I understand. Well, welcome to the community. We feel your pain. It's okay. Um, I don't think we've met one-on-one, correct, Patricia? You and I have not done our one-on-one session. There's a one-on-one session that comes with the master class.
My first session, yes, here.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's what I thought. So since you and I haven't met, during your one-on-one, everyone who accesses the masterclass gets these office hours on a weekly basis. So we'll be here next Tuesday, the following Tuesday. I'm here every Tuesday, so you're welcome to come back. But when it comes to you and I talking about your resume, your cover letter, your situation, like what's happening in your documents, that is what we can do during your one-on-one. So if you need access to my calendar to book that time, I can send that to you via email, Instagram, LinkedIn, very easy to send that to you. But I'm just letting you know that if I have yet to sort of see what documents you've been using, then I can't, because some people are using like a CV, a curriculum vitae, thinking it's a resume. Some folks are, submitting information. While it's fine, it's not being shaped in the way that the companies resonate with that. So we can look at that together, is what I'm saying. Um, so don't feel like you have to kind of get that resolved right now amongst the group. But with that said, from my experience helping individuals that for the most part had a career in another country and then are trying to establish themselves in the United States, the biggest rub or the biggest thing that they struggle with or that I've seen kind of coaching individuals through is helping you find ways to stay active in the community so your resume keeps building, right? Showing that you are active in the community. That doesn't mean you have to be paid. That doesn't mean it has to be, like a full-time job. But sometimes you end up having to volunteer a little bit or take part-time jobs or, doing something that keeps you active, so to speak. Um, I've even done something that I I need to keep reminding the community about is, uh, for example, catchafire.org, where they're an online platform where you can do virtual projects. And that's how I built that's kind of how I kept practicing my uh, contract management, negotiation, strategic planning space that I wanted to grow into. But there are other places you can find to stay active. That's what I try to focus on. So with all that said, my question to you is, what have you been doing to stay active? What was like your most recent experience, just to give me an idea?
Oh, I have a 13, 13 years experience. In my country, I work in different projects for public health. Uh,
But
and
when was the last
I
experience on your resume? What's on your resume? Is it 2023, 2020? Like, what is the last experience that you're listing?
My last experience is 20, it's 20 during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic.
Okay, so is there anything you've been doing to be active in these last 4, 5 years?
No, in public health, no.
Okay.
I work
No,
like a
anything,
geographer.
anything. Yeah, anything, anything. What are you doing?
Now I'm work like a geographer. Um,
Say that
Not
again.
specific for public health.
Say that again.
I'm
What is
a
it?
full professor, but in urban geography or human geography.
So you're a teacher?
Yes, I'm a teacher
That's
and I'm a
wonderful.
scientist research.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That should be disclosed on your resume.
No, I'm not included in my resume because I'm focused on in my PhD areas. There is my questions. It's necessary to include the teaching because sometimes when I apply for these institutions or universities or CDC or different institutions working with health, I'm not included teachers. I'm included only the public health expertise.
Right. That's why we have to meet, Patricia. So let's meet because you're misunderstanding how to use your experience. And I'm telling you, teaching is something you should be disclosing on your resume because you're not going to get pulled in. It's going
Okay.
to look like you're unemployed for the last 5, 4 years. So I'm letting you know that that is actually something you should be disclosing. That is a very active role in the communities, being a teacher. So yes, let's meet one-on-one. Do you have the automatic email that gave you this link? That should be included as well. But if you can't find it, let me know. Okay, Patricia?
Okay, I need to contact you for email and I send my resume to you and
Yeah, send
my
me your resume at publichealthhired@gmail.com. Just publichealthhired@gmail. That's my email. And just say, hey, here's my resume. Can you send me the link for my one-on-one time with you? And it's
Mhm.
complimentary. It comes with the masterclass. It's one time, 30 minutes. And you and I can talk about what needs to like,
Okay. Okay. Thank
yes,
you.
yes, you're welcome, Patricia. Yes,
Thank you.
yes, of course. Great question. No, this is amazing. I'm glad that you're raising this. Some of us are not used our one-on-one time intentionally or not aware. So thank you for raising that. So thank you. Yuko, you have a question? Hands up.
Yeah, good evening.
Hi. Yeah, hi. Nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, I have an HR interview tomorrow. So I've been just prepping with the total recall document, but just a couple of quick questions about the total recall. One is, so I've done the whole thing before the HR interview, but is this like the approach? Do you do total recall, the whole total recall thing before the HR? Or
Yes, yes,
HR?
because you don't know. Yes, because you don't know when. It's a great question, Yuko. Total recall interview prep that you see in the master class and that I talk about is meant to be used across the entire interview process because you really don't know what level of questions they're going to ask you. I have seen the HR, you can call them HR recruiter. You really don't know exactly where they're sitting, but at the end of the day, they're using they may be using criteria or they may be going off questions and just writing what you say, right? There's so many, they're not going to tell you exactly how they're taking notes. But at the end of the day, even if, regardless of who it is, you want to be ready for like the worst case scenario questions. Because in my own experience, my screening call interview, aka HR screening, whatever, that was way harder for my Kaiser job when I got screened. That was like a very intense 30 minutes, 5 questions, much more difficult than the actual interview that followed. So from my own experience, my ass has been saved, you could say, from Total Recall because of just how much I've seen. Now, with that said, I've also seen HR screenings or interview calls or the first interview, however you want to call it, be as simple as tell us about yourself. Why did you apply? When can you start? Sometimes it's very, right, but at the end of the day, even those should still be, right, framed appropriately using the key terms. Tell us about yourself in itself is a trap if you're not aware of how to use it, right? So that's my ask, Yuko, is nothing is easy.
Right.
You have to reflect on the job announcement one way or another. Yeah.
That's
That's
helpful.
exciting. Who is it?
It's a prenatal to three policy center at the Vanderbilt University. Um,
Okay.
and it's like, yeah, very similar to the job that I've done. So it's kind of like a lateral move, but it's more
Okay.
focused. So
All interviews are practice, 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 practice.
yeah.
So don't throw it away. Yeah, it's still worth practice. And I always say, here's another trap. Don't undermine or don't underestimate the power of the questions that you ask at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we think, oh, they're not the staff. They're not going to be able to answer these project-based questions. And that's fine. You should still ask it. Your first question to them should always be project program-based or like work related. So it should
Mm-hmm.
always be about the work. It shouldn't be about like, how much the salary is. Like that should be towards the end of the interview process or let them raise those kinds of
Right.
details, right? You're coming in as like, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to work. And even when they can't, just as a FYI, even when they can't answer those questions, they still take note of the question in itself, and then they relay that to the manager. So that's still showing, right, insight into who you are. So
Mm-hmm.
ask it. Yeah, prepare a good
Yeah.
question.
Um,
Great.
so
Yeah.
it sounds like so I've done like brain dump over all the points of the job posting and then came up with all the anticipated questions, but I separated them into like HR questions, like the questions that HR is likely going to ask, and then the like real interview questions. But it sounds like I should be prepared for all possible questions before the HR run in case it turns into like your Kaiser interview.
Sorry, say that again.
So it sounds like I have to be prepared for like all possible anticipated questions before the HR interview to be prepared.
Yeah, because like I said, I've experienced where they really want, like they're really weeding you out. Their job is to weed you out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, their job is to weed you out. And as gentle as they may sound, I've seen them be very friendly with you. They want to disarm you, right? They want you to it's just, oh, it's just a touch base. No, it's an interview, guys. Like, it's an interview. And so, as much as they may seem like I'm just getting some information, tell me more about yourself, it still needs to hit on, right? The onus is on you to then raise, is it about project management, grants management, stakeholder engagement? What is it that they want to hear from you?
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
the level of conversation. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited for you, Yuko. Yeah, you're making traction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, last question is about the document for the total recall.
Yeah.
I didn't see an example, like PDF on the platform. I don't know if there is, and if I'm missing it, but like
That's
how should I organize the document? Um,
so I'm glad you asked because I feel like interview prep is kind of the messier module of the three because I've kind of added and so because it's hard to explain it and over time, and I think I've gotten better with explaining it. But as far as the presentation, it walks you through one example of someone who did total recall for themselves because there's no actual template. The idea is that you take the job announcement and you write against it. You have to lift all your experiences against it. So if anything, I just give my mentees a journal to write freely. But then the other day, with that said, one of my mentees showed me like a guide that she was using, and it was like a nice little grid and template so she can fill in the blank. And while that's fine, it still doesn't, it still wasn't allowing her to dig deep enough into the insider knowledge because I remind you guys that resumes are what you did, interviews are how did you do that, right? So whether this person asks you, tell us your experience in X, right? In the master class, you learn about what X, fill in X. So tell us your experience about X. It's not literally what is on your resume, right? It's more insider detail knowledge information. So it's not always obvious what that is. And so while I can give you a grid, give you a guide, all I can do is kind of walk you through these, this is what it should feel like and be like for you. Now, with that said, there is the 4 phases of total recall. There is the data dumping, right? You're writing, writing, writing. This is what I've done. This is similar. I think this is what I did, right? You do title dropping, title dropping helps because you want to include in your questions, in your responses, who else was in the room. It's not just me, right? So there is the data dumping you've done. Then there's the assessing of trends and weaknesses. So then you take a step back and you notice, where am I talking a lot? Where do I have a lot to say? Oh, you probably have a lot to say in grants management. Maybe you have a lot to say in stakeholder engagement, but maybe you don't have enough to say about strategic planning or program design, right? Because that's mentioned in there. So you have to be ready to flip that, right? Now it comes to phase 3, anticipate the questions. What if they ask me about the one part that I don't have enough to say, right? You have to be aware of that. And sometimes the question is like, where's the growth opportunity in this role for you? Where would you need most support from your manager if you started? Like sometimes they're very keen on like wanting to hear, do you even know what you're stepping into, right? Do you know this role? So that is how they're testing you, right? So all of that to say that then you're anticipating the questions, right? Tell us the time you did X. What would you do if X happened? There's the scenario questions. What does health equity mean to you? What does advocacy mean to you? What is civic engagement? Like right? Those are some of the common questions. What would you do if you were hired in the first week, right? How walk us through your first week if you were hired? So those are some of the common questions.
Mhm.
So you start to anticipate those. But from that comes that 4th phase, which is the proper response. And the proper response is you frame it, you include a detail response, your example, and then you close it with others involved, the title dropping. So that's how you start to kind of prepare for those kinds of responses. And my guide, it's a PDF file in module 103. I can drop it in the chat if I just look for it quickly on my computer. But the guide only gives you examples of like 5 common questions and how I would frame those questions. And I think the guide is mentioning at the top, please note this is for like a program coordinator role. So these are going to sound like for a program coordinator, right? So the best I've been able to do is give you a 2 or 3 page guide that gives you an example. Have you seen that yet, Yuko?
Yes, I've seen that.
That's his best. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep adding to the next version to try to improve that, but that's where we are right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
where I've been kind of confused about is like after brain damping and then writing down anticipated questions and practicing responses, like do I develop this like master document where everything is organized, like it's not just a brain dump, but it's like more structured and organized so I can look at it during an interview or like
No, don't look at anything during an interview. No, 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 no. Oh my God, I see where you're going with this. Okay, see, this is why I don't like that. This is why I don't want, this is
Oh.
also why I don't like tracking on resumes and applications. You guys do that on your own terms, but like you'll notice I don't even, it's just it like just all I say is just collect the PDF of the job links and just collect, right? Collect your resumes. That's to me more of a tracker. But as far as how to organize all of this, that's why to me, yes, you can transfer some of this to typing. I find the onus of typing too much. I try to keep it as much as I can to the data dumping, brain dumping. Eventually, I have seen people type up their notes. That's really up to you. Um, here's something you guys may maybe take. I started writing and talking into my phone, talking into my computer to have it dictate and annotate for me. So maybe you're wasting too much time on typing and writing, but I feel like when I started talking into my devices, that really made me more feel like in the zone of interviews, right? Because you're talking anyways. And then it would spit out what I'm saying and I could reflect on if that was better, right? So I think if you're trying to find ways to kind of jump from one phase to another, that might be another thing to do is maybe annotate more through speaking. And then you get more comfortable using the language. But then as far as how to organize it, you could organize it against questions, right? That's one way I've seen people do it. But I also feel like the whole point of this is to help you anticipate up to 75% of the questions and for you not to feel so like deer in the headlights, right? About, oh my God, what are they going to ask me? What are they going to ask me? So it's not like you can brace yourself for every single question, but this does calm the nerve and you do actually hit on a lot of notes over time. It may not be perfect, but it is the best that I've seen people kind of land on the right note. Um, so yeah, I think it's more whatever makes you comfortable. I don't have a template where now you have to transfer this here and, because the questions still vary so widely. And then the other way that I'm trying to help you guys organize is brace yourself for broad type questions versus detailed type versus maturity based type. So when you say you're anticipating HR questions, I'm wondering if you're talking about maturity based.
I think broad-based and maturity-based mainly like tell me about yourself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How do you plan to grow into this position? Things like that.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you don't think they're gonna, so yeah, I mean, I think if you're assuming they won't ask you any detailed questions, that's the risk you're taking.
Right. I
That's
think
kind of it.
I have
Yeah.
to share that a little bit more because yeah, after talking to you, I think anything is possible.
From all the trauma, Yuko, I'm trying to warn you.
Yeah.
But you guys do what you got to do. So, but yay for interviews, Yuko. I'm so excited for you. Yeah. Do it.
Thank
This is all practice. Again, this is all practice. And just as an end to this question, I wanted to just remind you that a good interview isn't so much how you feel, right? It's not about whether you felt good about it. Shockingly, what it really is about is, was it more of a conversation than a Q&A style? So at
Mhm.
the end, can you feel like, yeah, that was a conversation with my colleagues, right? That's number one. And number two, was there follow-up questions? So were they like, can you tell us more about that? Or circle back about something? In fact, my mentee just sent me a text. She had an interview yesterday with Lewis and Clark College, really great college. And she was like, they asked me a lot of questions. And I'm like, were they follow-up? She's like, yeah, I was like nervous about the follow-up. I'm like, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. You might feel like I didn't say enough, but it's not that you didn't, it's that they're now leaning into that a little bit more. Like, tell us more. So the follow-up questions are good. And then lastly, did they write a lot? So, you know, going back to her question is, you know, I think she felt nervous because they were writing. I'm like, that's good. Even though that may make you nervous. If they're writing a lot on the screen, you're noticing that they're taking notes. That's the goal, is to keep them writing. So yeah, and then if you still feel awkward and weird about it, and like you were having to defend yourself, like, okay, you might still get pushed through. It's that kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. Well, we're sending you positive vibes. I'm glad you showed up today. Great way to prep. Yeah. All right. Next question. These are great. Wait, let me look at the chat real quick. Oh, our energy is low. I'm sorry. I know, Yuko. You'll be okay. Welcome to Patricia. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Just introducing yourself. Great. What's the current language in public health jobs? It's constantly changing. Yes, it is. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Preferred qualification should be. Jenny, you have a question about this? Preferred, required, desired stuff? Is Jenny, unless she left. Jenny, there you are. Can you unmute yourself?
Hey, Zoila, sorry.
Hi.
I'm walking the
Hi.
dog.
Oh, it's okay. What's your question? I'm not following.
So I feel like with the preferred versus required section, because in the past there's been so many encouragement of applying even if you don't meet the preferred qualifications, but then it seems like a lot of the conversations we've had is usually to consider preferred qualification as a requirement from the company.
Yeah, because that's what they're screening you through. So are you just saying that you're getting mixed messages?
Yes, so like, should I just not waste my time and just skip over if you don't meet the preferred, then don't even
Yeah.
bother?
Yes and no, because you know, we can talk about that one-on-one, right? As far as which, right, we can get down to the nitty, because sometimes I see that you have a question about PMP, and PMP is tough because it almost depends on what context of the work they're asking. Because sometimes I see PMP and it's like, oh yeah, that's like high level quality control, like data analysis PMP, or is it more project management PMP? Right? Like where's the line? So I have seen folks get through jobs that say PMP required, desired, preferred, but they don't have it. And they can instead disclose high level project management, right? And maybe it was in a healthcare environment, but it was maybe like a nonprofit or a consulting space. So I think it's more about the context when it says, but when I say must, you guys need to read it backwards, which means yes, you have to try to meet the required, desired, preferred, more so because you have to, that sense making needs to be there for you to feel like you can make your case and hold your own when they actually start to call you back. Like there's no way you're going to get a job if you can't address the required, desired, preferred, right? So if you're running into jobs that you still are feeling like, bummer, this is not it, bummer, this is not it, um, can you help me understand that a little bit more? We can do that. But
Okay.
yeah, I think the PMP does throw us though. I'll give you that. Because sometimes I'm still like on the fence about it. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you.
Good question. Yeah. All right. Cynthia, you had your hand up? Or Cynthia? Oh, Cynthia dropped. I saw she had her hand up. Cynthia, are you back? Cynthia, you dropped, but I saw you had your hand up. No? Okay. Questions? I'm searching? Is that what you guys are waiting for?
Zoila, I had one question.
Oh, who's that?
It's
Hi,
Meg.
Megan. Hi.
Hi. So I've noticed that some positions that I've applied for are being reposted, but I haven't heard anything back, like in terms of a callback or a rejection. Like sometimes I'll get a rejection and see it reposted and I'll be like, okay, pass. But if I haven't heard anything, should I be reapplying? Or should I assume that I'm part of the pool already?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Uh, I've seen it go both ways where people do reapply and they get pulled in the second time from the posting that's reposted, and other times where it's just doesn't do anything. So I think it more depends on how badly do you want it. Is it one that's like, yeah, this is like, you know what I mean? It doesn't hurt to reapply, but if you do, I would say maybe take another glance if there's something you missed, maybe another thing you could have done on your summary, another thing that, but at the end of the day, I'm not hearing like a huge swarm of people saying like, yeah, I got callbacks from all these,
Yeah.
reposted jobs. I think it's more of like, do you really want it? So yeah, I've heard like about 3 people who do get a callback after the second application or
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, because I'm
it's
like, okay, well,
up to
it's a
you.
little less work because, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll go
Yeah.
back and kind of see if there's any details in the position that's changed, and tailor accordingly. But I was like, I don't know if it's worth my time or not. I mean,
I
yeah,
don't want you to kill yourself over repost. Yeah, like just keep it simple, a quick 5-10 minute, like, okay, anything else? Make sure I don't know. What's funny is I say that I feel like for my Kaiser job, when I got pulled in 3 months after the job was posted. And I was feeling like a dread coming in of like, oh my God, the job's never going to be mine, that kind of thing. And then
mhm,
when they call me back for the interview, letting me know they already went through the first round of interviews, they didn't give it to anyone, so they're going to go back. And I was part of their second round. That was like, okay, fine, whatever. I realized that in my cover letter, I put the wrong date. I had put something like the wrong year, the wrong month. Like it was just not even addressed correctly. I was like, that's probably why I didn't get screened. Like I was
okay,
so I
yeah,
say this because it's hard to tell like why you're anyways, I just feel like you never know what you just overlooked that might help you get looked at again
okay, yeah. I
if it's
mean,
the wrong
because
year.
yeah, obviously, I want to make sure I go through things a second time if I'm gonna reapply, but I feel like I'm like, okay, well, if it's worth it to reapply, I don't know. It's all the work is kind of already done, so I don't
It
know.
has to be worth it. It
Yeah,
has to be worth it. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe did you go through the company's website directly?
yeah,
Okay. I don't know if it helps to go through Indeed or like are they put I don't know, like do you want to just submit through all their portals?
yeah. Okay,
I don't know. I think that's kind of now up to you, but I tell
okay,
you guys go directly to the company site, but
yeah. That's where I usually go.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Yeah.
know it's tough.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
tough.
excuse me, I haven't heard anything. So why
It's
is this reposted? But yeah,
tough.
I don't know. I wish
It's
I kind
tough.
of knew how they do things sometimes.
And then sometimes it will call you back months later. Like
Yeah.
it was just something. Yeah.